always, we'll open the meeting with a call for public comment. We have no attendees on Zoom to contribute comments. We don't seem to have anybody in the room other than 4 of us to contribute comments, so if one of us has something to contribute that we could call a public comment, now would be the time to do it. Otherwise, we will proceed. Never let it be said that we never offered you for public comment.
It's always there.
So, major agenda item tonight is to review, discuss updated bylaw revisions and open action items. I'll run through my list. Of course, if anybody has something I missed, chip in at the appropriate time. First item on my list was severability. I forwarded council's response to us, and basically put the question to her, would a broad-based or general severability clause work? And she said, indeed it would. It gave us suggested language. So if the committee is in agreement with that, I will insert that into Article 1, replace the Article 1, Section 7 with council's recommended language, and I will delete all other severability clauses. Since I've got most of the stuff already assembled into a package there, I can just quickly go through and remove all the existing severability clauses. Somehow we'll have to leave notes for future bylaw amenders that it's best not to include an individual severability clause, because we have one that counts for all. So,
Any preference or plan on the header for that staying validity, or we're changing that to severability?
I think I'll change it to severability.
Yeah.
Next topic on my list was council's review of recently revised articles. Council has reviewed several with no suggested edits. Article 19, which Evan sent out for review on Friday. Council had no suggested changes to that. I just confirmed with him today that he has no further changes to it, so I think I sent out the version of it that will include in the report. Right now, he submitted it in Word change tracking format, so I converted it to our red-green highlight format. Articles 26, 28A, and 33, council had no comment on. They're good to go.
And that was the latest 26.
The latest one, yes, the latest 26 after we went back and forth on it. Council did come back with suggested edits for Article 2. I think council had come back with some suggestions for Article 2. I sent back to her the revised version.
Yeah.
And she had one additional comment on that.
So I'm not sure I think it's just that first comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other ones are
The other ones are,
the.
she left in there. Yeah, the way that ended up being formatted was less than ideal. But yeah, she just suggested adding that e-voting is at the moderator's discretion. So it's the only further change to be made to Article 2 then.
So yeah, so you just add at the moderator's discretion between may be used and instead of show of hands.
That sounds like what she was looking for.
Okay. You want me to update that in the one online or?
Yeah, I mean, I could, I've got a copy of it. I could put it in there, but if you, it's just as easy for you to put it in there and then I can download it. Because I haven't done anything with it other than downloaded it. Article 3, council had a few comments on that regarding punctuation and an unnecessary phrase, if I summarize it right in my notes. Again, that's something I thought I'd sent that out on Monday, but I ended up not sending it out until this morning. Article 7, council had some punctuation corrections to make. we noted that council did not disagree with or otherwise comment on our deletion of the fee schedule. So, yeah, I thought I sent out Monday, but I ended up sending out this morning, an updated version of Article 7 with council's comments incorporated. If there are no further comments from us on any of these, we'll just consider them done. Article 12, the one thing that we had left hanging was the handicap parking. I updated that in line with what I reported to the committee last week. I also, again, thought I sent it out on Monday, but didn't send it out to this morning. Sort of a few page summary of my review of that, which I also passed on, passed on to the Accessibility Advisory Commission. I did hear back from Rob, the chair of their commission, and he said he apologized that they couldn't do more. They didn't do more to advise, but what they did give us was helpful. And he thought, without having taking an official position on behalf of the Accessibility Commission, he thought that what we proposed to do makes sense. So I've incorporated that into an updated Article 12. Another thing that I thought I sent out Monday, but didn't get sent out till this morning. And there was one comment, town council made one comment on section 8C where the penalties were inconsistent. It was $150 unless you're using non-criminal disposition, in which case it's $25, $50, or $200. So I lined up the dollar amounts to be the same. And that's all in the updated version.
Did we hear from the chief whether 21 is actually needed?
Yes. The chief thought it was important to have the part of 21 I left in.
Okay.
Basically the prohibition of obstruction of accessible parking and ramps. He thought that was valuable to have in there because it enables him to, via section 22D from the state, it enables him to have vehicles towed. So he thought it was worth keeping that part of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that wasn't just covered by MGL, but if they're not useful, then.
Yep, I made sure to run that question by the chief.
Yep.
And he said yes, because if he didn't need it, we could have eliminated that entire section. So I'm still waiting for council to get back to us on Article 16. A couple of questions we had regarding the dog law. I haven't heard yet from that. If I don't hear anything, I'll assume it's good to go as is.
Yeah.
And I'd also sent Article 25 for review. Those changes were minimal. And I'd be shocked if council came back and said there was a problem there.
So Article 3, they want to delete in the town.
Yeah.
Is that?
And so there are some commas, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a comma and a deletion.
Yeah. One comma and the phrase in the town. Council has not yet reviewed Articles 4 and 5. 5, I just got an update from Andy else. If we're all cool with that, I'll send that off to council review. Not going to expect council to have any issue with that.
Expect any pushback.
Or Evan had come up with a suggestion for article for section 6. And I have this vague recollection from our last meeting that there were some other things we might do with Article 4. That skips article and he's not here to speak to it. But tentatively we'll say with what Evan proposed for section 6, which I haven't circulated to the committee yet for some reason. But I think I was waiting to see if he had any feedback from council on that. I have to touch base with him to make sure on that. But if I don't hear anything else, I'll send four and five off for council review, and that will be almost everything. Well, we're still waiting to be sent off to council for, that's it on town council review. Article 4, next thing on my list, I kind of covered that. Article 5. And any issues with Article 5, we're good with that. Changing the tail end of it pretty much in line with what we discussed at the last meeting.
Yep.
Perfect comment on that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's missing rationale, but editorial.
And right. Anything else in Article 5? That Article 20. Personnel bylaw. Evan sent me something on Friday, and then later on the day he got back a suggested changes from Labor Council. So he said, never mind the stuff he sent out. And I got the updated section from Evan, from Labor Council via Evan this afternoon with a question. Because Labor Council is saying, a lot of this we don't really need because it's covered in policy in the form of the employee handbook. So they said, it might be nice if we eliminated a lot of that stuff out of the bylaw. The question was, you think the town will go for that? And I know we had talked about that at least off and on. We've generally speaking, we've taken the position that if something doesn't really need to be in the bylaw, let's take it out. And I think at one point we talked about personnel, and we thinking that a lot of that maybe doesn't need to be in the bylaw because it's either covered by federal law, state law, or local, employee policy. So my sense is that nobody in the town is going to object to simplifying that personnel bylaw. Over the years, we have simplified it in various ways. Most notably, it used to contain the entire table of positions. Every position in town hall was listed there, and if it wasn't listed there, you couldn't hire them. They were listed there, and their job grades and their steps. A lot of detail was in there. So every town meeting would be amending the personnel bylaw to add a position, remove a position, change its classification, change its grade. So we've already removed a lot of stuff from the personnel bylaw without a problem. So I'm inclined to say go for it. Evan I sent that back to Evan. I said, yeah, go for it. Try to simplify it. So he's working on that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm sure there might be holes in my memory, but for the most part, the duplication that we've tried to remove have been areas where there's some sort of, if we were going to assign a hierarchy to it, a higher level authority that had some sort of regulation on the matter, whether it's the charter, presuming that the charter outranks the bylaws, or mass general law or state or federal law. I see that as one animal. I think giving, and we ran into this a little bit with what we tried to do with 26 at first, giving authority from what currently exists in town meeting, through changes to the bylaw to some other authority, whether it was the select board with the policy, or in this case, I guess we'd be deferring to Evan, I presume, to kind of dictate the, or manage the personnel side of things. I could see town meeting having two different views on those. I don't know that that's enough of a reason to not try to simplify things. But I think they're two slightly different animals.
Yeah.
And that said, if there's any part of the personnel bylaw that Labor Council thinks is duplicative of state and federal law, I think that's a no-brainer. Let's get that out of there. But it would be the stuff that goes the other way that I might at least pause a little bit, or at least want to see what it might be. Vacation days or holidays. I don't know that people are gonna care a whole lot, although we made the change to Indigenous Peoples' Day and stuff like that through that part of the bylaw a year or two ago, so. And that was something that obviously town meeting felt like they wanted to say in.
So I'll forward this to, just got it this afternoon, but I'll forward this to all of you for further consideration that, you know, councils, labor council, this is part of it. Does the town even want to maintain a detailed personnel bylaw? Many towns still have detailed bylaws like Grafton, but by implication, many of them don't. The next step forward is to maintain bylaws that move away from trying to manage personnel rules by vote of town meeting. Employment decisions often require more flexibility than waiting months to make changes. Such an approach also undercuts the fact that town managers and administrators are knowledgeable professionals who are effectively charged with running highly complex organizations. A more modern approach would be to have a bylaw that allows for the creation of personnel policies developed by the town administrator subject to approval of the select board. I don't know if the town meeting is ready to move to this approach, but it creates a much more effective and efficient approach to the types of issues that bylaws try to address. So, I mean, it goes on, but the general idea is that towns tend to be moving away from micromanagement by bylaw. And so I'll forward Labor Council's email and their suggested edits to the personnel bylaw with all their comments for further review and consideration. It's still, I'd have to say it's my impression that this would slide right through town meeting with no problem. Because we've already, like I said, we've already reduced the amount of micromanagement in the personnel bylaw. So further reducing it and sort of delegating it, and, as he suggests, to more formal policies adopted by the select board rather than just the town administrator writing and doing whatever he wants.
Yeah.
That I think, that's probably a point worth emphasizing, that this sort of, it adapts to modern management practices, but it also puts the select board in charge of deciding the policy. So this is something we'll be continuing. We'll see what Evan comes back with the proposed change. We can work that as it develops. I would have liked for this to not come through only at the last minute, but people have other things to do. But there's still time to get this nailed down. But this is really the one open item that's left out of everything that we've been doing. And if that's the only thing that's left to work on, we're in pretty good shape. So the last item I had, or one other, Evan had mentioned to me that Ginny had some sort of a question or potential issue with non-criminal disposition, but until we hear more on that, I'm going to assume that our approach is going to we'll move forward with what we've decided. And if at the last minute we do need to change, we'll do it. And then
she's reviewed virtually all of the individual articles that have been ready to go, including a large number that we've added non-criminal disposition to. So I would hope if there was some global issue that it would have been raised one by one by now.
Yeah, Jenny has reviewed every one of the articles that we've given to her, many of which include or have added non-criminal disposition, and she's not commented, not raised an issue. So I'm not sure what it was that she was concerned about with Evan, but until I hear back, I'm not going to worry about it. Sort of the last item I have on my list of things to think about with our bylaw revisions is we have come up with many different ways to denote sections that have been deleted. That needs notes. Fine.
Even within Article 6, two different.
So we have everything from this section deleted by town meeting such and such to deleted to there's many different phrases or words that we've used, and we should be consistent. And I looked a little bit through other places, Mass General laws. They tend to note repealed sections by, say repealed by chapter such and such of the acts of such and such a year. In some towns, I looked through some other towns' bylaws, and in our own zoning bylaw and subdivision rules, we use the word reserved as a placeholder for an article number or a section number that's been removed. And it doesn't really say, it just says, it's a placeholder for a number that we want to keep the number there, but other than that. So we could say, we could go with that to be consistent with some of our subdivision rules, reserved wherever we believe something, or we could say deleted or repealed. We should be consistent.
I'm thinking deleted or repealed is probably sufficient, assuming we're going to have the same kind of notation that we have after modified articles now, indicating when the article was last modified. It looked like a TM 10/15/90. And if not, then just deleted in the date or repealed in the date.
I think it'd be helpful to go with the deleted or reserve or repealed option, because I think our preference had been to leave the header and put that as the content of the section. So if it's clear, all right, there used to be a section on XYZ topic and that's been repealed. I'm assuming the reserved option, all of that goes away and you're just reserving that section number.
Right, you're reserving the number, but you're not explaining why the number is.
Or what it used to be, or
and that's something somebody later on could decide we need a different, we don't like the word deleted there, we want it to be reserved. But for us, all that really matters to me is we agree on one term to be used everywhere where we have a section deleted. Deleted date. That work?
Yeah.
And I can, I've got much of that already folded into the committee report document, so I can run through and just make those consistent.
And I assume so the way the proposal would read, it would just be deleted, and then it would be on, when the town clerk is assembling the next version, she's gonna be adding the dates after all of these changes. So we wouldn't necessarily need to put that in our edit, it would just be.
Right, that would make sense to me. That's everything on my list regarding bylaw revisions that we're not yet complete.
I only have one quick comment on what Evan sent for 19. You updated based on what Evan sent. When we touched on it before, I thought we were just going through the items that town council either had or didn't have comments on. So in section 1A, where we define director as the director of the DPW, I believe we typically put definitions like that or define terms in quotes. Director, Department of Public Works, and then the director in parentheses.
Putting the word director in quotes there.
Yeah, that's.
Somewhat related to that is we have a definition section at N. I'd like to see that as A. And then maybe we can just put the director in there.
Yeah, that would make sense too.
I think that finding the definitions at the end.
Yeah, and it's,
Yeah.
the definitions, even though lead in, makes it sound like there's more than one, and currently it only defines
Yeah.
private way. So at least add a second definition to the second.
Evan handed this off to us, we can do.
Yeah.
We should feel free to do with it what we want, except I wouldn't want to change unless we had good reason, even there, if we wanted to.
Yeah.
If what Evan proposed is not quite right, but, yeah, I tend to prefer seeing definitions up front.
Yeah. The only other piece of substance that I even paused on, and I was gonna bring it up, but I'm staring at it now, it's right above the definition section. I wondered when I read it if $2,500 was, I know Evan sounded like he got this from somewhere, and I don't know how old that $2,500 might be from wherever he grabbed it. Just doesn't seem like we can do a whole lot for 2,500, so it's,
Yeah,
it seems like
well,
it's setting us up to need approval for everything anyway.
compare to some other towns, which I looked at, they're comparable by a number of them, their limit is 1,000.
Yeah.
So 20, I think
I imagine that would be enough to patch a hole. Or
Yeah.
something small, like,
right,
it's intended for something really small that the
Yes.
DPW could do in a day.
And I wonder if that's intended to largely be materials, and so we're not imputing any personnel costs into that, or, because if that's purely materials, then yeah, the $2,500 goes
Yeah.
a bit further, but.
yeah, no, that's, I think that, I'm assuming that Evan looked at that number and thought it reasonable. But yes, as Greg points out, this is really intended to be small stuff. And although this language, which largely came from Hopkinton, I had researched a number of different towns and gave Evan some examples from about 4 or 5 different towns of various ways that they've approached it. And I both kind of liked the Hopkins approach because it gives a good deal of flexibility.
One thing that I thought I saw under abutters said 80% of the owners of properties, and I'm just wondering how that 80% is computed. Is it 80% of the properties or 80% of the people together who own the properties? So if there's one owner, that's one. If there's 3 owners, that's 3. But they have 75% of the abutting owners in 2E, so I'm guessing it's probably not too big a deal. There's probably some standard way.
There probably is, that language is pretty common across the towns that I looked at.
I would assume that would reduce each property to a single vote, so somehow, if there's common ownership, you need to figure out how you're voting.
And this one's not even a vote, it's just you need to sign
Yeah.
on the petition. So if there's 10 properties, you need 8 of them, no matter how many owners are in each property.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe reorganizing that sentence a little bit. Or at least. Or the owners of at least 80% of the properties which abut the way have signed a petition. Might clear that up.
Yeah, I like that, but owners of 80% of the properties, so it's clear that the 80% is.
Yep. That would make sense.
We've done that.
See, good things
There was-
happen when we really look at things.
I have one thought on Article 1, Section 5. The town clerk is hereby authorized to assign appropriate numbers to bylaw sections. Do we need to say numbers and letters? Some of them are lettered. Or is numbers
I think
encompass?
the term numbers are implicitly includes letters.
Okay. I thought that might be the case, but
I would assume so, because most sections are numbered, but there are lists.
yeah.
Some of them are numbered lists, some of them are lettered lists.
And the only reason I noticed that was because with the warrant article format where the lettered list was right below that section. I said, oh, we have we're not changing these letters, so the town clerk, we're relying on the town clerk's ability to assign appropriate letters. Oh, but it says numbers, not letters. So that's how I got there.
Yep. Is there anything else that we have on any of the proposed bylaw revisions? So with the exception of Article 20, which is, we have yet to see a the final recommended version from Evan. And Articles 4 and 5, for which we have yet to have town council review. I'm not expecting anything to come out of that, but you never know. I think we have everything else all lined up. Pretty good in. Let's see.
We're all set on 1221 parking, right?
Yes,
So you just have to plug that one section in.
12, let's see.
And it looked like the version that you had already sent over to council, it looked like had already reflected that change.
Yes,
So council's already on board with it, all that.
Okay, I did not pick up on that. Yes, okay, now I see it.
as far as I can tell. There's nothing that remains to be done with Article 12. Been reviewed by council. I've got the parking update in there. Responded to one comment council had on it. I should be good with that.
We have a list of articles that are still with council for review. I know we touched on 16.
Yeah, I'm still, haven't heard back from council yet on 16 and 25. I'm not expecting any further comments from council on 25. Just a formality. For some reason I haven't sent that out there until recently. 16, I've asked for a comment, but there were the two questions we had about that, but council has not responded on yet. So those two they're with council, haven't gotten back yet. Unless I'll have to review my emails that I got back from council. She may actually have said something about those that I just didn't notice. And then Articles 4 and 5, which until now we weren't ready to send. So that's about it.
Article 12 of the plastic bag bylaw. So we have federal plastic bag bylaw, then we have section 28 plastic bag reduction, and then section 28A definitions. Do we need both the plastic bag bylaw header and the section 28 plastic bag reduction? And then the same thing for polystyrene reduction.
Yeah, that's a little bit awkward just because of the way Article 12 is constructed.
Yeah,
That ideally the plastic bylaw would be its own article. But I might consider, I was scratching my head on that for a while. And I thought it was. Although, come to think of it. Maybe that section 28 header could go away in its entirety.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because, you know, some of the sections in, Article 12. They're numbered by subsections, like 28A, 28. There's like 8A, B, and C, so, you know, while I was,
25.
section 8.
Yeah, 11.
It'd be, for consistency, it'd be nice for there to be a section 8, a header that says section 8. But in a case like this, and these two, 28 and 29, both, the section header, section 29, it is kind of redundant. And I'll double check on that, but for consistency with the rest of Article 12, it's probably better not to delete those standalone section headers.
But if you look at, and I think Greg might have had some others too, but I was just looking at section 25, fingerprint-based criminal record background checks. There's no section 25 kind of caption, like that's sitting above section 25A, and then it dives right into section
Yep.
A, B.
Yeah, so there's, I think for consistency with the rest of Article 12, I think you're right that I should delete those two section headers.
Yeah, I like the section 25 format better than the section 11,
On the other hand,
section 28.
you know,
Actually, it's very similar to 20A, 20B, and 20C. There's an
Yeah.
overall alcoholic beverages, and then 20A, B, and C below it.
yes, now. This gets into things that I'm not really gonna want to dig into, or gonna try to change at this point, but. In the interest of using Word to generate a table of contents, where each of the sections are included in the table of contents, you would want to have a section heading. Like section 20, alcohol beverages. But if you're going to do that, if I was going to do that, I would take all these section headings that are bold and centered, and I would convert them to, like, if I'm just looking at section 28 here. And I right above that, instead of bold and centered alcoholic beverages, I would put section 20 alcoholic beverages. And I would do that everywhere. And then 20A, 20B, 20C, you know, you could even come up with an alternative subsection numbering scheme. But I'm not gonna go there tonight.
No, and I think
That's just, if I were to reformat the whole thing.
Yeah.
To my liking, that's what I would do.
And I think that would be a non-substantive change to the town clerk.
That would be a non-substantive change.
Well, within-
Arguably, that would be included in
Yeah.
either the catch-all warrant article we're proposing for things like Mass General Laws abbreviations, or it's even arguably could be included in the existing Article 1,
Yeah.
Section 8, 5, or whatever that number is. That authorizes renumbering. We don't need to remove that. That's why I did for 28 and 29 what I did, but that's where I really wasn't looking at the consistency with the rest of the
Yeah.
article.
The part that jumps out at me is plastic bag bylaw, plastic bag reduction,
Yep.
and then polystyrene reduction bylaw, polystyrene reduction.
And I constructed it that way because I wanted to have a section 29 period,
Yeah,
but I think in hindsight, I was wrong to want that.
so I would also be fine with removing the plastic bag bylaw centered above it and have section 28 plastic bag reduction. And then maybe just A definitions, B, without being the whole section 28. That would be. Because those are,
I think the unnumbered bold header is the consistent header.
For consistency with how the rest of it is constructed, yes.
Unfortunately, so.
that,
Yes,
which actually varies from bylaw to bylaws.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, that's one of the things that if I were in charge of reformatting this whole body of bylaws, I would,
I have a feeling they're going to be.
Yeah, I think that's falls under typesetting. Yeah,
yes, all of that is not a substantive change we're talking about here.
yeah,
And at some point in the future, maybe I know what Evan would like to do, if ever the time comes when it's practical to do so, is to what he calls codification. It's basically someone takes the whole body of bylaws and structures it in a somewhat more structured format, puts it online in a way, you see this with a number of towns, and some of them use E-code 360. There's a couple of other services that are similar to that, where there may even be a sort of a standardized numbering and grouping scheme that I don't know about, but I mean, when it comes to something like that, it's really completely reformatting, not changing the substance, but just reorganize, structure the bylaws, the way they're numbered, the way they're organized. So that's a whole other thing that maybe someday will happen, but we don't need to worry about it.
yeah.
So right now, I think,
Taking this as a whole, once all of the substantive stuff is passed, and we have a new document, we can look at that in more detail.
yep.
Finding all the sections that don't have headers, and whether it's after the section name, or section number.
It's that.
So
And for
just another,
the more we look at this, the more we're gonna find little things that be changed.
do we use the term subsection anywhere as a label other than in reference, like numbering subsection? We give the town clerk the ability to change them. I don't know if that would help. Keeping subsection 1 definition, subsection 2 plastic bags prohibited, subsection 3 enforcement.
Yeah, no, we haven't. I don't think we ever used that terminology.
Okay.
And
I don't think we have them as much, but we certainly have.
yes,
Yeah.
we have sections and subsections. But we have a fairly, we're fixing a couple of variations in that. We have a pretty uniform way of referring to sections.
Yeah.
But beyond that, in some sections, the subsections, what you and I might call a subsection is a lettered list, A, B, and C.
Mhm.
In other cases, it's 29A, 29B, or it's 20 parentheses A. I mean, we have a number of different conventions that aren't really conventions for labeling subsections. You know, and then, it's like, I would go through from front to back and come up with a consistent way of labeling subsections, identifying subsections, a consistent format for numbered and lettered lists in terms of formatting and indentation. Whether are you using one, are you using one in parentheses, are you using one followed by a parenthesis, are you using lowercase a, uppercase a, with or without parentheses, and for different list levels, what's your convention for, numbered first level, lettered second level, Roman third level? I mean, there's all that crap that I would, the inconsistencies just leap out at me, and I've been resisting the temptation to try to go through and fix that stuff now. Because it just detracts from what we're really trying to do, but we're focused more on the substance. Somebody puts me in charge and wait and see. Probably a good reason why they don't want to put me in charge of it. Anyway,
I'm sure Candy would be happy to have somebody take that on, regardless of who it was.
yeah, I don't envy Candy the job of putting the package together to submit to the Attorney General for review.
Hopefully she can just use the warrant.
Well, the warrant is part of it,
Yeah.
but not all of it. I was just looking at that, I was wondering, what does she have to submit to the Attorney General? And there's a long list of things. The current official bylaws, warrant articles, the boats,
Mhm.
what the bylaws will look like after they're edited,
So that all needs to be done first.
so. And there's various other paperwork that goes along with it too, but the biggies are obviously the current copy of the bylaw that's there. But then there is applying the approved warrant articles to the bylaws. And that's the result, and then so they need, the Attorney General needs to see the whole thing, the whole result. They also need to see what the changes were and other paperwork certifications that town clerk and that is a fair amount of paperwork. And the last time I checked, as of a day or two ago, the Attorney General had yet to approve the zoning bylaw changes we made back in May. It can take a while for that to flow
Is
through
there
the
a
Attorney
fix?
General.
Do they only have a certain time period to respond?
Yeah, there are time limits. I think the town clerk, it's either 30 or 60 days the town clerk has to submit the information to the AG. The AG has 90 days to review. We're only a little more than 90 days past the May town meeting. And the AG has to, after Springtown meeting season, the AG generally has a lot of towns to work on. So, what else? Do we have anything else? Any other comments or suggestions for the bylaws that we've already thought we were done with? We will have one more chance to go through from front to back and pick out anything else. Which kind of leads me to the next topic on the agenda. Committee report. Again, I actually didn't have this ready to send out until today, but I sent around an updated version of the report. It's got basically reflect the changes we discussed at our last meeting. It's got most of the bylaw articles in it, except for the ones that we were still discussing tonight, in terms of the format and the content. Any further thoughts and what little time you may have had to review that? Any further thoughts on?
The thing I noticed is we had said part 4, roads not taken. We did not need to include things that were in the recommended follow-up actions such as noise bylaw, future open meeting laws. So those, we said we could pull those out of the table.
Yeah, I think
If it makes sense.
I went through and the ones I left in there, as far as I could tell, the ones I left in there were ones that came from outside our committee.
I mean, I'm fine with having extra in there, it's just, it's a little bit redundant, but not enough to,
Which,
the open meeting law provisions and the noise bylaw.
yeah, those comments came from the planning board, so I figured that qualifies as being from outside the committee.
Okay, I thought we said that anything that we talked about in 3, we didn't need to be in 4, but if you're saying, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what I
right.
was thinking.
Yeah, okay, I see where you're coming from there. And in the interest of making the report slightly shorter and easier to read, would everybody be comfortable deleting those 2 for the road not taken because we addressed those in the previous section?
Probably knocks off the page.
That row from the table. What's on and up? We can reduce it by a page or two, go for it. Anything before the charter section?
It didn't really go through the individual sections, but the framework around it.
Yeah. Yeah, the individual sections, we're gonna wanna, read those through just to make sure that everything looks kosher.
Yeah.
On the proposed charter revision, part 6. Responding to our discussion at the last meeting, I deleted those charter articles that we don't propose any changes to. But that what's still left in here is a lot of unchanged text, and it occurred to me just this afternoon that we could further reduce the size of that by including only the parts of those charter sections that were for where we're proposing amendments. So for example, in section 3 here, article 3, we're proposing amendments only in one paragraph under the select board. So section 3-2D is the only change we're actually, change 3-2D, we're proposing changes in 3-4A, 3-4B.
Yeah, I think we had said last time that we were fine with that level of just the actual subsection.
It's this level of, even the level of just including the subsection for
Yes.
change.
And I think, again, I'm happy to be overruled. I probably lean towards including the entire section. So even though we're only adjusting or tweaking 3-2D, I probably include all of 3-2 for context. Same thing with 3-4, even though we're only adjusting a part of 3-4B1.
3-4 is small enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go for that.
3-8, 3-4. 3-2. 3-2 is less than a page. Or just about a page.
Yeah, we're all comfortable with that. We'll go that way.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but that's kind of the level of detail I was envisioning for the warrant as well. Yeah, even for the main bylaws.
Yes,
I think it'd be a hybrid of the two options that we're debating about.
that thought occurred to me, and I think relative to the charter presentation in the report, that thought crossed my mind when I was starting to think about writing a warrant article for the charter, that while in the report we want to present enough context to make it clear, the warrant article can be even more concise. So in 3-2 as an example, 3-4, the warrant article might well read, delete the phrase "and all other officers and employees that are connected with the schools" from Article 3, Section 3-4, paragraph B, subparagraph 1. So yeah, the warrant article doesn't have to provide a lot of context. But for people reading the report, understand what we're trying to do here, yeah, you want enough context to make that clear.
Yeah, I might want to keep enough of the context so they can see that, because if you're gonna vote on this, then you have to look and see what that thing is before you actually look at that, so.
Yeah, so we can sort of make. Unless there's a good reason to do otherwise, I would start out by thinking of the warrant article in terms that we just talked about for the report, this section.
Yeah. The last comment, I know it's kind of against our convention, but I might skip the red highlight and strike through for Article 8. and say, we're just deleting this. And just list it, since we don't have to identify, this goes and this stays.
That's what, certainly that's what we would do with a warrant article.
Yeah. It'd be easier to read, and there's no need to differentiate any text in that article from any other text in that article. Is there actually an 8-5D with nothing in it at the very end?
I think it's similar to the point that Greg was making. Probably don't need to. I don't know, the first bullet, in the header box referencing section 8-5. Is needed if we're explaining that we're doing away with the whole thing as a,
I thought it was worth pointing that specifically,
Yeah.
specifically because that sort of among other things, it ties our action on all of Article 8 in with what prompted us to propose charter changes in the first place.
Sure.
And it also, I think, it's important to explain because a lot of people take that 8-5 list of appointments as gospel.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, the last charter review committee treated it as something that needed to be updated. So I thought that was worth calling out.
So that D at the end is not actually there in the charter.
Yeah, I was looking that up, but that's an artifact of Microsoft Word.
Yep. Did a new line at the end of the bullet, so it made a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. That appeared in the report document when I copied and pasted the standalone charter document with all the revisions, and when I pasted it in there, and picked up that paragraph. The other comments on the report format and content? I think, so what I will do with that, I'll update it according to what we've just been talking about. I'll throw in the remaining bylaw articles that are not yet in there. With the possible exception of, I don't have Article 20 yet to throw in there. So I'll put everything else in there. Go through to make sure things are consistent. I've got some global edits to make. The terminology for a deleted section, the separability clauses. Sections. Oh. Verify that all of our references to the website are to the official website of the town of Grafton, as we discussed last meeting. Make sure that our references to local newspaper as defined in the charter are all there and correct. That's about it for the remaining sort of global edits to make on that. Yeah. And get this sent out to us at some point earlier than the day of the next meeting, so we can all read through all of our proposed bylaw revisions and check to make sure that after all my editing, it still says what we wanted to say. Although I try hard not to insert junk in there. As you can see by that dangling D at the very end, I occasionally get something not quite perfect. But I do have a methodology for verifying that the text in the report here matches the current version of the charter document. So I'll take all the revisions here, delete all the added text, leave the deleted text in place, and have Word compare the documents. And to the extent that I've already done that, I've caught a couple of things where an accidental editing error creeps in. But important, I think, to verify that what we claim is the original text really is, and that we're not annotating as a change something that we're not actually changing. But I am trying to, I do want to make sure that as best I can, that everything is accurate and accurately reflects the changes we propose to make. So I should be able to get that out to all of us early in the week. There's really not a whole lot of work involved in that. And then next on our agenda, if we're done with the report for the moment, our final, once the report is complete, we'll want to do that. And I think maybe if we can get that done at the next meeting, maybe we can say officially at the next meeting, here's what we have for the warrant.
Yeah.
Which gets us into town meeting planning, which some of that we don't need to do now, but I did want to I wanted to get a start at looking at how to construct the warrant. But another one of the things I sent out late today, this morning, I guess it was, is sort of the beginnings of how we would take the committee report here, which has everything in it, and basically make a copy of that and transform it into a set of warrant articles. So I did that for half a dozen or a dozen warrant articles, the first dozen or so, whatever it was. Just to get an idea of what it would take to construct that and what it would look like.
Yeah, that's where I think I was landing on a preference for format being somewhat between the two options. Like what you've laid out for Articles 1 and 13, where the first option includes the entire text of the bylaw, and the other hones in on and or just describe what changes are. I think my hybrid would probably include a similar amount of text that we just talked about including in the report for the charter amendments, where if we're tweaking a section, we include the entirety of that section. I guess one where that would probably turn into a bit of a disaster is Article 12, where a section could be, basically the entirety of what could be a standalone bylaw. But yeah, I thought that the shorter version was almost too little. But
in general, I have a preference to not use the thing, delete sections, blah, blah, blah in their entirety and replace them with this. For the most part. And that probably goes out the window somewhere around Silver Lake.
Yeah, I think what we'll end up wanting to do with the warrant, it's really for each warrant article, we're gonna have to look at. We'll start out with lifting everything from the report and dropping it in as, the warrant article is to amend the bylaw, amend Article X of the bylaws as follows, with everything we had in the report, with all the changes struck through and underlined. And then we'll look at those and see is there a reasonable opportunity to condense it? For example, what I did in my alternative Article 13 is just sort of my first cut at that is what you see, where I've just taken the Article 13, something like 6 or 7 pages, I forget, I'm counting on the other day, but anyway, reduced it down to 2 pages, consisting of itemizing the changes to the sections that are being changed.
Yeah.
So I've included an entire section here. I looked at section 3A, for example, where only item F of section 3A is being changed. And you could condense that down to say, change section 3A item F in just that paragraph. But I tend to think it's probably somewhat more readable if the whole section is in there, which is what you were suggesting, Brian, I think.
Yeah.
That by including the entire section, you see item F here is, you see it, we're removing, in fact, you could say delete item F of section 3A without saying anything more.
Yeah, for that one, I could see delete the following section and include the text.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, I think like I said, it's gonna vary from one bylaw article to the next as to what's the most useful presentation of that in a warrant article.
Yeah.
A number of them, particularly some of the smaller bylaw articles, they're only half a page to begin with, and we've got changes in most of the sections of it. Just throw the whole thing in the warrant article. Keep it simple, and that's almost no work for us to do. We've already got it formatted.
Yeah.
All I do when I lift it out of the report with red, green highlighting, drop it into the warrant article, is I just change those 2 highlighting styles, those 2 character styles, to remove the color.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think section or Article 13, the alternative looks good, and I think looks like what I hope to see.
Yeah.
Where I was getting hung up with the alternative, I think was on the alternative to Article 1. And it was probably the same point that Greg was making, where we talk about replacing section 6 through 9 with what we've got here. It's like, well, if I'm a casual voter at town meeting that hasn't, for some reason, been following every one of our meetings, I'm not gonna have in front of me what 6 through 9 currently are. And so, how substantive are the changes to land on the new 6 to 9?
Yeah, section 9 is the one section of Article 1 that I think really works better in a warrant article by just to replace it this as it's shown here. And the others, section 8 could easily be presented as adds and deletes. Section 7, that's the severability that we're going to change that. We're going to be completely replacing it.
Yeah.
But you could do that. You could present that as delete the old and insert the new. Same thing with Article 6 or Section 6. The old is Section 6A, B, C, and D, crossing all that out, dropping the new Section 6 in there now. But again, including the crossed out parts of it may be more useful for people reading it. But Section 9, you can't read it and understand it when you're seeing it as adds and deletes.
Yeah. So yeah, I do like the alternative, Article 13. I might even go one step further. 1, add the subtitle definitions. 2, amend to C4C, 6A, and 7B as follows. 3, delete 3A, F, and 3B. And just put those texts in.
Yep. I had thought about that approach for a moment, but I didn't want to. It was less writing for me just to write it the way I did.
Yeah.
But yes, this is what I wanted to get to, and was for us to start thinking about. There will be a number of different ways to format these as warrant articles. And we'll look at each one and choose what works best, at least what we think works best, and hand it over to William. I think William would probably volunteer to do this and take our report and do all the writing on his own, but since it's a nearly trivial exercise to at least construct a first pass at the warrant.
Yep.
Just by copy and paste and a few global edits. Other people have enough work to do, they don't have to.
Are there any changes in Article 17?
There are not. In the warrant, I don't think I would propose, and we want a warrant article for 17 just to hold the number.
Yeah.
But the warrant article should say something like no changes are proposed.
Could we use the reserved idea for, yeah, can we reserve a section in the warrant? And just kind of skip over warrant article 17?
Yeah, well,
And I believe
See it-
there's
to
one
see if
other.
it- See if the town will vote to pass over Article,
Yeah,
Article making Article change. See if the town will vote to amend Article 10 of the general bylaws as follows. First line of Article 17. There's a missed update of the article number.
oh, yes. Incomplete editing.
Yep. So we'll vote to make no changes on the article.
Yes, I haven't, I think we'll probably want to consult with,
There is no article.
town council. Somebody is suggesting the most appropriate way to word this. There are exactly 2 bylaw articles for which there are no changes proposed.
18 has the same incomplete edit.
Yes, I get. Not that it really matters.
Yeah.
At this point. But, they all do.
Actually, Article 18, Section 4. The $1/$5 is not something that we are proposing. That is a clerical error that has already been corrected.
Yes.
what about leaving article 17 and the other article that doesn't have any changes as is? The warrant article allows for to take any other action relative there too. So if somebody at town meeting wants to place a hold on article 17 to propose their own amendments, by all means.
Yeah, arguably, as it reads here, it is not incorrect.
Yeah. Just confusing.
Amend the article as follows with deletions indicated, struck through, and additions underlined. Well, you read it, nothing is struck through, nothing is underlined. So, yeah, technically, that's not inaccurate to present it that way. It's just it's gonna be puzzling to anybody who's reading it.
Including the attorney general.
Yeah, no, I know we're gonna have to come up with workable language for that.
Or, I mean, one of us could hold it and hold this in the other article and just pass them over separately, so it's not part of the, what gets passed.
We can do it simple. See if the town will vote to make no changes to Article 17 of the general bylaws.
Or yeah, we could just exclude these two from the, consent motion. So that we're not passing them, per se. That we can pass over them separately.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out the mechanics of that, but that's something we can kind of do almost at the last minute, except I think I want to have something plausible to submit when we formally submit our warrant articles to the warrant. Select Board is going to open the warrant this coming Tuesday. We'll have a meeting scheduled for Thursday. Maybe at our Thursday meeting, we'll have enough lined up where we can say, here's, we can formally vote to submit this to the warrant for the town meeting.
There we go. Article Section 4 annual report. We can put in there that as specified in bylaw section, so they know when to submit the annual report. Then we have a change.
Yeah.
Interesting, we've gone through 41 bylaw articles and identified changes for 39.
What's the other one?
Top of my head, I don't remember which the other one is.
Okay.
The Agricultural Commission, Article 38.
So it's a fairly recent one.
Yeah.
Very short one too.
Yeah. So, something I wanted to ask you guys about. Going back to the committee report, part 5. The sort of catch-all warrant article language. There was a question raised about how in that warrant article we should refer to what bylaws are we authorizing to be updated here. So I added a bit to this. Authorized to make revisions to the bylaws as amended by all amendments approved by this town meeting. I want to run this by town council to see if that language works. Basically, we want this work to be done after all the approved amendments incorporated into the bylaws, then go through and make these editorial changes.
Instead of by, would we want to say approve through this town meeting? So that it's clear we're talking about, you know, the current bylaws as previously amended, including current amendments.
Or just say as amended by this town meeting.
As amended by this town meeting.
Yeah, I suppose by there could have the dual meaning of at and through.
I want to be really,
I suppose it,
I could say if you just say as amended by this town meeting. I suppose either way, it's sort of the same sort of circular argument, because this itself is an amendment.
and I suppose as long as this is the last of our warrant articles,
Yeah.
Yes.
all other amendments will have already, you know, been voted,
One
so.
way or the other, yes.
Yeah, I had similar thought,
And I do,
and we have to act on them in order. Other than consent agenda, so this should not be in the consent.
Yeah.
Motion.
no, and I think the simpler language as amended by this town meeting works for me. I'll run this by town council. Just make sure that. I want to make sure that whatever we're doing here is going to actually work the way we want it to. Strange idea, I know.
And I'd like to make sure that town council agrees that the however, whatever we land on for terminology explicitly includes the types of inconsistencies that we call out below, right? So if she doesn't think that, you know, revising how we refer to the bylaws, would be something that would, you know, because we specifically call out references to the general laws. So hopefully that covers the first bullet. If we don't specifically, and I don't think it makes sense to call out something as specific as the second bullet. So if she doesn't think that that would be included in what we're leaving there, then, you know, is there a way to keep it to cover it,
Yeah.
or? You know, we just need to get it?
Good, then my intent here was by saying including but not limited to, that's intended to be sort of open-ended, but also terminology, spelling, capitalization, those all kind of cover and can be understood to
Yeah, with spelling, I guess we cover everything.
the various ways of spelling bylaw.
We have on our radar somehow connecting with the moderator, on, you know, we need to, you know, I don't know if there makes sense or if there needs to be any level of coordination directly with us, and she obviously coordinates with the select board and finance committee before the meeting, but with this being such a significant chunk.
Yeah, that's probably, that may or may not come up as something that we need to worry about. We've touched on the question of whether we should have any kind of a presentation prepared for town meeting. We probably will want to have some sort of material prepared. But I'm not quite, that's something we have until the day before town meeting, you know, we have some time to consider the details. The moderator, other people may have some suggestions for how best to be prepared for working at town meeting. We will have finance committee public hearings on the warrant are going to be coming up.
'20th, 21st, 25th.
2021, 25 of September. Yeah, so yeah, the warrant is supposed to close on the 19th.
Yep.
And we will probably, some or all of us will want to be prepared to be available for the finance committee public hearings starting on the 20th.
Yeah.
Typically, the FinCom schedules various warrant articles for different nights of their hearings. This probably will be the first.
I don't know if we want to schedule everything else first and then do this after. We'll see, we should have a list tomorrow of everything that's gonna be there, and then we'll work out from there what it'll be. And we'll have to see what the content of the other ones
Right,
are.
we don't yet know what the full warrant is going to be.
Yeah.
The select board hasn't even officially opened the warrant.
Right,
Tomorrow, we should know what citizen petitions are going to be there.
now, that's long past, that's 45. No, I guess that is. I guess it's not passed.
Yeah,
But yeah, close of business tomorrow is the deadline.
Okay, I was thinking that was just for town departments, but I guess that's for citizens. Yeah, because that's 45 days, okay.
but anyway, yeah, so there will still be some town meeting prep work for us to do. But
Yeah.
right now, we want to zero in and getting a warrant together. And we're very close to that. So, there's nothing else. Last agenda item is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
We'll move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as submitted.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimously. And with that, I'd be willing to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There, the motion carried unanimously.